Hello and welcome to the channel. We are going to be talking today about a question I've had a few times regarding why I don't use a sacrificial lens on my flir breach thermal imager. So before we get on to the topic today, first things first, if you like today's video, please give the video a like. And if you want to see more content from the channel, please hit the subscribe button and then the notification bell icon, and you'll be notified when we post new content. So, first things first, the question, why don't you use a sacrificial lens in front of your thermal imaging device's lens? Well, first thing, what is a thermal imaging camera? Well, basically it's a camera designed to capture an image of the heat emitted by an object. Now, typically that camera will grade the image color in some way. So it'll basically change the color of the view of the image depending on the temperature of the particular item or the point in the picture. Thermal imaging cameras do this by capturing infrared emissions from an item when it's essentially generating heat. And that's how they use that to determine the heat signature of the item. And the flir breach is essentially no different. That's basically what it does. Now, when you're protecting a rifle scope or a night vision device or even a camera, you place a sacrificial lens in front of the objective lens on that device, and that will basically try to minimize or prevent any damage to it from a flying BB and so on in an airsoft or milsim environment. These sacrificial lenses are often made of hardened materials such as glass, like the Gorilla Glass that you'll see on mobile phones and so on, and screen protectors, or another kind of hardened material called polycarbonate. These materials have extra hardness, so they essentially minimize any damage as that sort of BB hits and strikes the lens, and effectively they absorb any energy that basically they impart, and protect and essentially stop or minimize any potential damage to the underlying lens of the scope or the camera. Now, these protective lenses are designed to be translucent to visible light. As a result, they work well on a rifle scope or a camera because they essentially let the light in and the camera can work. However, these hardened materials are generally not that suitable for use with thermal imaging. And this is because those materials are not always translucent to infrared light. They either block it or they reflect it back. So the light essentially doesn't make it to the sensor and thus renders any device using them as protection unusable as a thermal imager. Now, to demonstrate this, what I'm going to do is capture some video of my thermal imaging monocular, the flir breach, looking at a heat source and using some different materials in front of the objective lens here to actually demonstrate what happens when you try and protect that lens with another material. So we've got a number of materials here. So the first things first is what we've got here is a little sacrificial lens, which is actually designed to go on a flir night vision monocular, and this is basically just glass, and the idea here is it's just an extra layer of glass to sort of protect the night vision device. Next up, we have a piece of Gorilla Glass. Now, this is actually a piece that's designed just to protect a GoPro screen, but essentially you can have smaller ones cut that you could effectively use on the front of something like a rifle scope or maybe a night vision monocular, or even this if you wanted to. But essentially this is Gorilla Glass. And then finally we have a 3mm thick piece of polycarbonate. This one's been pre-cut to actually fit a rifle scope, but it's just actually enough to fit on top of the flir breach. And that's basically the kind of stuff that comes from a sheet, something like this. It's a great big sheet of polycarbonate. Now, we have a couple of other materials as well, which we're going to use as kind of not controls, but just to kind of show you some other things and how they look through the thermal imager. These offer zero protection. And essentially, we're just going to see how they alter the image. The first of these is cling film. Now, I've taken some cling film and wrapped it around this GoPro housing here, but this is PVC cling film. It's super thin, it provides zero protection, unless you're wrapping your food. Then we have a clear plastic polyethylene bag. Essentially quite sort of standard plastic bag. And then we also have a opaque polyethylene plastic bag. And we're going to use each of those in front of the thermal imager. Just to set up the control, we're going to use a small candle, which is basically one of these night lights, as the heat source. And then I'm going to place each of the materials in front of the flir bleach as it looks at that flame. Now, we have the flir bleach set on the rainbow view option for the actual imaging picture, which basically means white is going to be the hottest temperature when looking through the imager. We will also put each of these lenses as close as possible to the objective lens. So when we put them over, we will put them over as close as possible. And that's simulating if we were using them to actually try and protect the objective lens. We're going to have an initial clip, which is basically unprotected, unobstructed, of the thermal imager looking at the flame, just so you can see what it is before as the control. And that is basically shown next. The first of the lenses we're going to try is the MVG sacrificial lens. What you will see with the sacrificial lens is that it actually reduces the visible heat signature shown on the thermal imager by quite a lot. The second thing we're going to show in front of the thermal imager is the Gorilla Glass, essentially the piece of Gorilla Glass. I'm trying to get a good picture of that. And that's going to get put in front of the lens just like so. As you can see, just like the MVG lens, this greatly reduces the visible heat signature. Finally, on the protective lenses, we're going to use the polycarbonate sacrificial lens, and we're going to pop that in front of the lens like so as well. This too again reduces the visible heat signature by a significant amount, just leaving a very small signature. The final three are going to basically be the cling film and the plastic bags. So first up, the cling film. Next, we have the first of the plastic bags. And then finally, the last of the plastic bags. As you can see, although none of them offer any protection, they do reduce a small amount the visible signature, but they do not completely obliterate it like the other protective lenses do earlier on. So in conclusion, using anything in front of a thermal imaging device's objective lens will limit the ability of the imager to capture infrared light, as many protective materials that, although they're translucent to visible light, they are not translucent to infrared light, or they reflect it back. As a result, that thermal imager, when it's capturing a heat signature, has a much reduced image. So basically, this is the reason why I don't use a protective lens in front of the objective lens of my thermal imaging device, and this is why you shouldn't do so too if you have one yourself. And this kind of applies to all sort of thermal imaging devices, not just the FLIR range, but if you've got a different thermal imager from different manufacturers, they all suffer from the same problem. So if you found the video today useful, please hit the like button. And if you want to see more of the content, don't forget to subscribe. So thank you all for watching today. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.